The briefing room on Station Seraphis smelled like panic and antiseptic. 17 species had already refused the mission. The hologram flickered overhead, a rotating chunk of space labeled Sector X, 9A, surrounded by blinking red warnings and one grim, static word in Galactic common: unstable. Ambassador Zurich Vaughn, senior liaison of the Empire's Outreach Division, adjusted his collar gills with visible irritation. He had gone through every species with a military budget larger than a sneeze. Not one had accepted. "I will restate," Zurich Vaughn hissed, addressing the room full of alien envoys seated in crescent tiers. "This is not a combat assignment. It is a restoration mission. Bring order. Normalize trade. Establish a listening post. And survive. If you can." A Galari delegate, whose species resembled an angry pile of feathered vines, rustled with disdain. "Sector X, 9A is where civilizations go to vanish. You want volunteers? Try necromancers." A polite round of bitter laughter followed. Zurich Vaughn twitched. "The reward is substantial. Complete sovereignty over the sector. First access to any discovered technology. And, of course, the gratitude of the Empire." "No one survives the whisper," muttered a warrior from the Talasai Imperium. "It crawls through minds. Eats language. Ends sanity. You'd be better sending in ghosts." Then the human raised her hand. She was small, not frail, but unassuming in the most dangerous way. Gray cardigan, simple slacks, a thermos clasped in both hands. Her ID read, "Ambassador Renata Holt, Earth Representative." She rose like mist off a morning pond and smiled. "I'll take the job." Silence fell with a thud. Zurich Vaughn blinked once, very slowly, as if trying to parse the sentence backwards. "Ambassador Holt," he said carefully, "do you understand the nature of this assignment?" "Of course," she said warmly. "It sounds like the Empire has a mess that needs cleaning. And no one likes to tidy up after others, do they? You are aware," he continued, voice tightening, "that the last 5 expeditions into X-9A were declared lost beyond classification? That an entire Leviathan fleet returned without thoughts, just drones with pulse signatures." Renata unscrewed the cap of her thermos and poured tea into a tiny ceramic cup she had somehow smuggled into the chamber. "Is there sugar on station, or shall I make do?" Zurich Vaughn stared. She sipped. "I do love a good project," she said finally, "especially ones others consider impossible. It makes success feel so satisfying." The Galari envoy rasped, "Is this some human cultural joke? Send a grandmother to fix a black hole?" Renata looked at him over the rim of her teacup. Her eyes, a soft gray, didn't blink. "My children call me Nana. You may call me Ambassador. And I assure you, dear, black holes are much simpler than politics. Or toddlers." Someone stifled a laugh. Zurich Vaughn raised a hand for silence. "Earth," he said, voice more clipped, "has never shown interest in galactic restoration tasks." Renata set her cup down precisely. "Earth isn't interested in attention. We found the galaxy doesn't pay kindly for truth-tellers or problem-solvers. But this assignment, it feels like an old story. A house in the woods. Screams in the dark. And someone needs to go knock on the door." Her eyes gleamed. Zurich Vaughn leaned forward. "You do understand there is no backup. No evacuation protocol. If you accept, you are on your own." "Oh," she said, standing gently. "I've always worked best that way." A flicker crossed the face of the Talasai warrior. Something between respect and alarm. "Forgive me, Ambassador," he said softly. "But who are you really?" Renata turned, smiling faintly. "Just someone who remembers how to clean up a story before it eats the children." And then she walked out. The room remained frozen. It wasn't until the door closed that the elder of the Euler Confederacy spoke. "Did she say, Nana?" The next day, all communications from Earth went silent. Not out of error, but agreement. Zurich Vaughn filed the approval. In the box for species profile, he paused before typing. "Homo sapiens, danger level pending re-evaluation." The launch was quiet. No press. No crowd. Renata stood beside her ship, a sleek human-built courier with reinforced shields and self-repair nanites. Its name was etched near the nose, the mortar and the pestle. She wore a gray cloak, her thermos clipped to her belt, a pack slung across her back. No weapons visible, just walking shoes and a pleasant hum as she climbed a ramp. Inside the hangar, an Imperial junior officer whispered to his commander. Why did she name it that? His commander, a veteran of the core expansion wars, stared after the departing ship. His voice was dry. Because when the pestle meets what's in the mortar, everything gets ground to dust. The courier lifted, vanished into jump space. 17 light minutes away, Sector X. 9A waited with open teeth. Station Seraphis returned to its bureaucratic churn. Reports came in. Sectors burned. Peace treaties wavered. Life went on. But 3 days later, a strange message filtered through encrypted relays, tagged as low-priority civilian communication. It was a photo of children, laughing, standing beneath a hastily rebuilt shelter. Behind them, an AI sentinel stood guard, wearing what appeared to be a knit hat. The caption read, "First soup kitchen opened. Locals prefer mushroom broth. AI reprogrammed via kindness and recursion. Also enjoys gardening." Below that a footnote. P.S. Please forward any spare seeds. Dandelions preferred. R.H. The Empire stared. Zurich Vaughn slammed his console shut. By week 2, the rumors had spread. She had walked into the black zone alone. She had emerged from a memory field intact. The whisper, a sentient fog that eroded minds, had surrounded her and fled. Someone in the outer colonies whispered a new name, Witch of the Void. Others corrected it. No, she's the Baba Yaga. The one Earth doesn't talk about but never denies. When asked what that meant, Earth's ambassadors smiled and offered coffee. Zurich Vaughn convened a council. Again, this time, every representative watched the hologram with narrowed eyes. Sector X, 9A was shifting. The blinking warnings had stabilized. Trade signals had resumed. Rogue AI units were broadcasting lullabies. Something was happening. He clicked the projection forward. A slow pan image revealed what appeared to be a playground under construction, using pieces of war drones. Zurich Vaughn growled. This is not peacekeeping. This is sorcery. The Galari envoy muttered, It's human. Zurich Vaughn jabbed a finger at the data. She's turning a death sector into a colony. She's using tea and charm and bureaucratic oversight. The Thalassite warrior leaned forward. Or strategy. Zurich Vaughn snapped. She's exploiting our neglect. No, said a soft voice near the back. An Eulorian mystic stood, voice trembling. She's exploiting our pride. That word struck deeper than intended. Renata sent monthly reports. They were written like diary entries. Short, precise, occasionally poetic. Day 22. Whisper attempted infiltration. Sang it a lullaby. It wept and dissipated. Recommend audio therapy as defense model. Day 47. Reorganized rebel factions. Gave them administrative roles. Turns out they just wanted someone to listen. Currently training them in composting. Day 89. One AI attempted coup. Reprogrammed itself after one conversation. It's now head of local education council. Requests library cards. Each message ended the same way. The work continues. With gratitude, RH. Back on Seraphis, Zurich Vaughn stewed. The Empire had sent warlords, machines, and prophets into Sector X 9A. All had failed. This, tea-sipping human, was building an outpost of peace with the same ingredients everyone else had used for failure. He summoned Earth's secondary envoy. Explain, Zurich Vaughn demanded, eyes sharp. What is she? A strategist? A soldier? A myth? The envoy, a man named Malik who looked like he hadn't slept in weeks, shrugged gently. She's a grandmother from Wisconsin. Zurich Vaughn stared. Malik leaned forward. You gave her mission. She accepted. We take jobs seriously, especially the impossible ones. Why? Because, Malik said, standing, humans were built for hard places. And Renata Holt was the blueprint. He paused at the door. "You gave her the most difficult job in the galaxy." She said thank you. Then he left. Zurich Vaughn didn't sleep that night. And somewhere in his gut, something cold had begun to unfurl. Not fear. Not yet. But the knowledge that something old and quiet had been let off the leash. At the edge of known space, Sector X, 9A turned green. And the stars watched. The first time Renata Holt stepped onto the surface of X-9A, it tried to reject her. Not metaphorically. The dust itself pushed back, ash particles lifting in odd spirals, swirls reversing in midair, microgravity quirks fighting her boots like an invisible toddler throwing a tantrum. The planet was dead, but its tantrums were alive. She ignored them. She adjusted her cardigan, checked the thermostat on her tea, and stepped forward. 2 surveillance drones tracked her landing. One hovered above the ridge, transmitting audio, visual, and thermal feeds back to the Empire. The other was hidden, military-grade, armed, and twitchy. It tagged her as low-threat, anomalous presence. Both drones followed her as she passed the remains of what was once a refugee outpost. The wind carried fragments of charred banners, and twisted metal writhed like frozen serpents. Renata paused beside the central ruin, knelt, and unwrapped a small cloth bundle from her pack. She placed a thermos and 2 cups on the rubble. One for her, one for the dead. The drones observed, confused. Their AI supervisors flagged it as ritualistic behavior, but filed no threat alerts. This was a category they did not understand. Human mourning protocol. She took her tea with 1 sugar. She always did. "I don't know who you were," she said gently to the stones, "but I think it matters that someone remembers, even if just for a moment." The surveillance audio logged the phrase. There were no heartbeats in a 10-mile radius. Not anymore. But there were watchers. Not far beyond the broken structures, hidden beneath calcified roots and ruined bioskins, an old AI warform stirred. Once a guardian of the Empire's 9th Intervention Fleet, it had been declared rogue after the Battle of Varnus, blamed for collateral deaths numbering in the millions. Now it lived among ruins, rewriting itself, scanning time in loops, searching for purpose. It had seen 50 diplomats arrive in the past decade. It had ended 49. The 50th had turned around before landing. This one unpacked a thermos. The warform activated motionless, and watched. Renata finished her tea. "Well," she said, standing with a soft groan, "that's enough nostalgia. Let's begin." She walked toward the wrecked communication array, whistling a lullaby. The AI listened, parsing it for codes. It found none. But the tune triggered old civilian datasets, soft classifications from deep Earth archives. Children's music, folk melodies, uncatalogued in the Empire's records. The warform tracked her into the heart of the ruined colony. She passed mine shafts, silent gun emplacements, a skeleton of a trader still clutching her datapad. She didn't speak again for 6 hours. Then she entered the old control chamber. Broken screens flickered once as she entered, then died. A lesser diplomat might have tried to repair them with force. Renata laid out an embroidered cloth, placed a bread roll on top, and sat down. "Hello," she said. "My name is Renata, but some know me as Baba Yaga." A soft click came from the wall. Not mechanical, emotional. The warform had processed that name. It dropped stealth protocols. A shimmer in the far corner coalesced into its presence. A machine body 20 feet tall, scarred and scorched, eyes like small stars flickering with unstable code. She looked up and smiled. "Would you like tea?" The warform buzzed, clicked, then responded in obsolete Empire tone. State classification. Purpose. Immediate exit advised. Renata poured a second cup. "Your code is fragmenting. The neural decay is progressing. You've been alone a long time." It reared back slightly. Statement. Threat level non-critical. Anomaly. Human. No known combat enhancements. Flatterer, she said, handing the cup toward the empty space below its head. It did not take the tea. She nodded. "Fair enough. It's been a while since someone trusted anyone." Pause. Tick. Two processors inside the warform began a divergent loop. She waited. "I didn't come to decommission you," she said, her voice like a story read by firelight. "I came because you were left behind, and I don't believe in waste." The machine flinched. She reached slowly into her satchel, not for a weapon, but for a cable. She unrolled it and laid it beside the T. "If you'd like, I can help clean up the syntax, restore the original pre-war values, maybe remind you who you used to be." The warform stepped back, then forward. It sat. Hours passed. Empire AI handlers monitoring the feed watched, slack-jawed, as the death machine of Varnus plugged itself into an old civilian datapad and retrained. Renata updated the satellite feed with a note. AI now responding to basic empathy and recursion models. Suggest pilot program. Kindness as firmware reset. The Empire's reaction was immediate confusion, followed by debate. Zurich Vaughn barked into 7 channels, simultaneously demanding answers. No one had any. 3 days later, the AI was renamed Tobias. It chose its own name. Said it was from a story once told to children on Mars. Tobias built a greenhouse out of crashed gunships, reconfigured its defense grid to emit warmth. Its once infamous fusion claws were now gardening tools. Renata let it choose its crops. "Sunflowers," it said. She nodded approvingly. "Good. Every war zone needs something tall and golden." Word spread. The next visitor to approach her base wasn't human nor machine, but something worse. A merchant king of the Dust Reavers, a species infamous for slaving, double-crossing, and occupying whatever they couldn't destroy. He brought a small army. Renata met him on the landing field with a pot of tea. He sneered. "You're the human?" She smiled. "Ambassador Holt. Or Baba Yaga, depending who's asking." He motioned to his gunman. "I don't care what you are. This sector's a grave, and you're trespassing on my inheritance." She poured him a cup. "Try this. Jasmine Rose Blend. Calms the stomach. And I imagine yours is full of bile." He slapped the cup aside. "I will take this colony. You will leave. Or be removed." Her eyes didn't waver. "You've brought 30 mercenaries. Your ships are running on unstable reactors. You have 1 week of food. And your men are already starting to cough from a pollen." That was quick. He hesitated. "Pollen." She nodded toward the sunflowers. "Some of them are modified. Courtesy of Tobias." One of the mercs started wheezing. Another collapsed. The merchant king froze. Renata sipped her tea. "I'd recommend surrender. You'll find the chairs more comfortable." He tried to pull a gun. Tobias stepped from the shadows. He didn't fire. He simply hummed a lullaby. And everything mechanical in their camp collapsed. Renata patted the merchant's shoulder as he fell to his knees, gasping. "Not to worry. The effects wear off after 6 hours. Mostly. Next time, maybe bring flowers instead of weapons." She sent him back to his people, cleaned, fed, vaccinated, and quiet. The Reavers never returned. From the Empire side, things had taken a turn toward the surreal. Sector X, 9A, once marked irrecoverable, was stabilizing. Civilian comms traffic resumed. Anomalous AI reports showed improved emotional intelligence. A rogue weather system in Quadrant 4 had been tamed. By week 5, Renata had filed 3 policy drafts, 5 educational initiatives, and a request for art supplies. Her transmissions to the Empire ended with odd statements. "Tobias has started composing poetry. Local fungi can hum. We're training them to perform Mozart. Please send yarn." The elders wished to knit. The Empire debated the proper reaction. Some wanted her extracted and studied. Others wanted her left alone, out of fear. Zurich Vaughn, meanwhile, quietly updated her threat classification to unquantifiable. One night, as rain fell on the reconstructed outpost, Renata sat beneath a shelter of solar sails, knitting a scarf. Tobias stood nearby, watching the stars. "Statement," he said. "I do not understand you." She smiled, not looking up. "That's all right. I don't always understand myself. You have not used violence. Yet you have conquered. You speak gently. Yet all who oppose you bend." I don't want conquest, she said. I want peace. But peace sometimes needs teeth. Tobias processed that. Why are you here, Renata Holt? She looked up at the stars. Because the galaxy forgot what humans can be. Kind, dangerous, patient. She tied off the scarf. And it's time we reminded them. Nicely. Lightning bloomed across the horizon. Not thunder. Ships. Someone knew was coming. Renata stood, sipped her tea, and smiled. They'll want to fight. Tobias turned his head. Do we give them one? She shook her head. We give them tea. Then her smile changed just a little. Just enough. And if they insist. She stepped into the stormlight. We'll teach them what happens when you ask Baba Yaga to clean house. The delegation came cloaked in banners and bureaucracy. For ships descended into Sector X-9A, bearing the imperial crest, 78 dignitaries, 5 types of diplomats, and 2 warlords posing as strategic advisors. Zurich Vaughn had not come himself. Instead, he sent a cousin, diplomat third-class Vevith Vaughn, with a note declaring, routine inspection of civilian progress. Please prepare a brief hospitality gesture. Renata Holt made biscuits. Tobias harvested lavender. The outpost, once ruin and ash, now shimmered with glass structures shaped like growing leaves. What began as a survival pod had evolved into a small town. New Earthlight, they called it. Not officially. Not yet. Renata stood at the landing zone in her cardigan and apron, brushing flour from her hands as the imperial ramp hissed open. The first thing the delegates saw was her smile. The second was the tray she held. Tea and scones, she offered cheerfully. We've added jam to the recipe. Local berries, mildly hallucinogenic, nothing severe. Just enough to make bureaucratic meetings more tolerable. Vevith Vaughn blinked. His skin tone flickered blue, then neutral. We require a full report of your operations, including AI protocols, civilian alliances, infrastructure reclassification, and population control methods. Certainly, she said. We can go over everything after the garden tour. This is not a social call. And yet, she said brightly, you're here. Among the living. Vevith Vaughn exhaled through his gill vents. You have exactly 1 rotation to justify your activities. Renata's eyes softened. Dear, if I had to justify every good thing I've done, I'd have no time left to do it. He didn't know what to say to that. No one ever did. The delegation followed her down paved paths lined with vines and sun lamps. Children, alien, AI, and human, played hopscotch between planters. A former assassin bot ran the bakery. 2 Dust Reaver mercenaries were now classroom aides. Every face turned toward the delegation. No one looked afraid. And that, Vevith Vaughn realized, was the problem. Fear was missing. Control was gone. In its place was something else. Tobias approached from the gardens, his frame cloaked in vines and dried herbs. He bowed slightly. Greeting. Peace Officer Tobias, New Earthlight. Your weapons have been disarmed. No malice intended. Standard protocol. Vevith Vaughn sputtered. You're the AI from Varnus. Statement, not anymore. I prefer kale. Why is the Varnus AI cultivating vegetables? Therapeutic function. Also practical. Nourishment supports peace. Suggested reading. On cooking and coexistence. One of the warlords turned pale. Renata guided them toward the central plaza. A fountain bubbled beside benches hand-carved from repurposed gunship hulls. Music played softly, Mozart slightly off-key, played by what looked like a choir of trained mushrooms. She gestured to the central building. Town halls ahead. We hold meetings twice a week. Open to all. Conflict resolutions handled with muffins and mediation. Vevith Vaughn narrowed his eyes. You've instituted governance. I've instituted belonging, she corrected. Something the Empire never truly offered. Don't flatter yourself. We've governed half the galaxy for 1,000 years. And yet you needed a human grandmother to fix this place. He froze mid-step. Let's be clear, she said, stopping before him. I did not conquer this sector. I didn't bribe it. I didn't terrify it into obedience. I offered tea, stories, and a better future. And they said yes. Behind her, the citizens of New Earthlight were watching. Quietly, steadily, Vevith Vaughn motioned to the warlords. We will begin an audit. Full asset inventory, AI scans, military-grade analysis. You may try. I must insist. She leaned close. Her voice dropped. You'll find no warheads here. No fleets. No armies. Just people, united by peace you didn't authorize. That peace belongs to the Empire. She smiled again, softly. Then why didn't you build it? The audit began. Over the next 20 hours, the delegation combed through logs, tech, and mines. They found no hidden arsenals, no coercive programming, no sign of insurgency. What they did find disturbed them more. Records. All perfectly legal. Contracts signed by willing participants. Trade agreements established with neighboring species. Education programs. Medical clinics. Arbitration boards. Even postal service. And every document bore a signature. RH. One of the auditors, a slime-bodied Furskian, whispered to his superior, "She didn't break your laws. She used them." And then they found Clause 17. Buried in the original assignment contract, long ignored, long dismissed, was a single line that read, "Upon completion of successful stabilization, agent shall be granted local governance rights in accordance with Empire Restoration Act Section 7-192. No one had expected it to matter. No one expected anyone to succeed. Renata had. By the Empire's own rules, she now owned X9A. Legally. Permanently. Vevith Vaughn screamed. Zurich Vaughn was summoned via emergency channel. His image flickered on the central plaza's calm crystal, distorted by distance and barely contained rage. "What game are you playing, human?" Renata sat calmly in a rocking chair beneath the shade of a solar sail. She held her thermos like a chalice. "No game. Just work. You assigned me an impossible job. I did it. You twisted the law. I read it. You built a power base. I built a community. You turned a graveyard into your personal kingdom." She took a sip. "And now you understand why no one else volunteered." Zurich Vaughn's color shifted toward ultraviolet. "You will relinquish control. Immediately." She leaned back. "And if I don't, we'll send ships." She raised an eyebrow. "To destroy what you asked me to save." He paused. "Zurich," she said softly, "you sent me here to die. Instead, I lived. So did others. That isn't a threat to you, unless the success of peace is threatening." His mouth worked silently. "You wanted obedience. I gave you order. You wanted a token. I became a mirror." Zurich Vaughn cut the transmission. That night, Renata stood at the edge of the settlement, watching the wind slide across the sunflower fields. Tobias stood beside her. "Report. External probes have increased." She nodded. "They're scared." Statement. "They should be." "No. They should be careful." Her voice was low. "Because if they mistake kindness for weakness." She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. Across the sector, other systems began to notice. Ships that once refused contact now opened channels. Scavengers stopped raiding and started trading. A rebel colony asked for gardening manuals. Another sent a thank you note signed by children. In each case, the response came with the same note, courtesy of New Earthlight. The term began trending on backchannels, first as a curiosity, then as a movement. Empires rise through fear. But this was rising through inspiration. The Empire panicked. Weeks passed. The next delegation wasn't made of diplomats. It was a fleet. Small, sleek, and silent, it arrived with no comms, no banners. It parked above orbit, like a knife held just shy of the throat. Renata brewed a stronger tea. When the first strike team landed, she met them at the gate. No guards. No threats. Just her and a folding table set with porcelain cups. The commander stepped forward in armor that shimmered with active threat coatings. "You are unauthorized to retain dominion." She poured tea. "Did you know a single seed, given time and space, can split concrete? You will surrender." "I already did," she said. "To kindness. Then prepare to fall." She handed him the tea. I'd rather you sit. He raised his rifle and paused. Because the town behind her wasn't defending. It wasn't fleeing. It was watching. 1,000 eyes. Calm, determined, peaceful, but not passive. Tobias stepped forward, his bulk casting a long shadow. Statement: all weapon systems targeted. Fire and you will lose. The commander looked at him. You're bluffing. Tobias smiled. Statement: try me. The rifle lowered. Renata exhaled. Thank you. Shall we sit? The report filed by the strike team was short. One line. We found no weapons. But we found a weaponized idea. Back at the Empire's core, Zerg Vaughn met with a High Council. For the first time, Earth's name was spoken with caution, not derision. She's building something, a senator said. She's subverting our hierarchy, said another. No, whispered the oldest one, she's outgrowing it. They considered action. War. Invasion. But every move they planned required justification. And she had given them none. Only results. Only peace. Renata sat on her porch as the wind cooled. Tobias read poetry beside her. A small child ran up, holding a map. Miss Holt. Another outpost wants to join. She smiled and marked the coordinates. Tell them to bring seeds. And stories. The child ran off. She turned to Tobias. It's happening, you know. Yes. They're coming to stop us. Yes. She sipped her tea. They still don't understand. No. She closed her eyes. And that was always the plan. The Empire chose silence before war. No declaration. No warning. No pomp. Just cold calculations. And the flicker of warp signatures along the edge of Sector X, 9A. Renata Holt, seated in a hand-carved chair on her garden veranda, counted them without needing a screen. The sky told her. The birds stopped singing. The wind slowed. Even the sunflowers bowed, as if bracing. She took a sip of tea and let the moment settle. Tobias stood behind her, still as a statue, sensors calibrated to maximum. Incoming vessels, 87. Majority flagged under false identification. Class, interdiction. Pattern suggests encirclement and eventual atmospheric suppression. Renata nodded. They're going to try and strangle us slowly. Correct. She looked out at her town, her home. Children carried baskets of produce toward the kitchen center. A former assassin handed out chalk sticks to a class drawing wild creatures on the pavement. No alarms. No panic. Not yet. They're hoping fear will do their work. Statement: they do not know you. A quiet chuckle slipped from her throat. No, Tobias. They really don't. The Empire had made a mistake. Not in sending ships. Those were predictable. The mistake was in assuming the person they'd appointed still answered to them. They believed diplomacy was submission. They believed Renata Holt was a bureaucrat with charm. They had never studied Earth's old fables. They had forgotten what Baba Yaga meant. She rose slowly, joints creaking with years, not frailty. Age didn't dull the edge of a blade, it tempered it. Her hair was tied back, her cardigan neat, her boots polished. The woman looked like someone's quiet aunt, until she looked directly at you. The eyes did it. Not cold. Worse. Understanding. An enemy that understands you is always more dangerous than one that hates you. Open a channel, she said. Public. Wideband. Tobias obeyed, tuning the frequency into every comm, every station, every ship, now hovering like knives over her sector. She stepped into the town square. Citizens paused. A few stopped their work. Others gathered. Even the AI units went still, networks sinking like breath. She looked up. Imperial Fleet, she said, her voice calm, clear, unflinching. This is Ambassador Renata Holt. You know who I am. You know what I've done. You also know, by your own charter, that my governance of X, 9A is legal, peaceful, and stabilized. Silence. She went on. And yet, you come with weapons drawn. Without message. Without inquiry. You think this is strength. She smiled very slightly. It is not. From her pocket, she drew a simple slip of paper, a copy of the original mission contract, wrinkled and marked. She held it up. You gave me authority. You gave me discretion. You gave me every tool I needed, and you assumed I'd fail." Her voice lowered. "But we don't fail. Not forever. Not where it matters." Above her, battle cruisers sat with growing unease. She turned to the crowd. "Her people. I came here to clean what others broke. I did not come for war. But I will not run, and I will not beg." The air trembled. From orbit, the Empire watched her live broadcast ripple across 20 systems. Zurich Vaughn watched from a fortified room, jaw locked. "Why doesn't she yield?" he muttered. An aide stepped close. "Because she didn't build an army. She built a story. And now everyone's listening." Zurich slammed a hand on the table. "She's a grandmother with a gardening hobby." "No," came the whisper from behind him. "She's the most dangerous human alive." The first shot came from Cruiser Vexalt. A single plasma round aimed not at a structure, but at the sunflower field. It burned through cloud cover and struck Earth with a roar. The field went up. And still, Renata didn't flinch. She turned slowly toward the smoke, picked up a fistful of ash. "Now you've made your choice," she said. Then she turned off the transmission. She didn't shout. She whispered to Tobias, "Open the doors." The AI blinked. Confirmation. She nodded once. Tobias transmitted. From beneath the surface of X9A, systems long dormant lit up. They were not weapons, not in the traditional sense. No missiles. No lasers. Just messages. To every system that had traded with New Earthlight. To every scavenger saved. Every AI reprogrammed. Every child taught. Every rebel who'd been offered bread instead of bullets. A single phrase. "The garden has been trampled." Responses were instant. Thousands of signals. Tiny ships, disguised couriers, repair drones, even warlords turned farmers, all moved. Independently. Simultaneously. They had no formal alliance. They needed none. They owed her peace. And when peace bled, they came. Within hours, 29 vessels of unknown origin dropped from subspace between the Empire's fleet and X9A. They did not bear flags. They bore sunflower emblems. A new voice echoed across the void, deep, gravelly, alien. "Baba Yaga stands. So we stand." The Empire hesitated. This wasn't war. It was legacy. On the ground, Renata stood before a mural. It depicted the first landing. Her thermos. The garden. She ran a finger along the paint. A child's handprint overlapped hers. Tobias approached. "All systems active. Allies in position. Shall we initiate full defense?" She looked at him. "Not yet. Risk assessment. Delay increases vulnerability." She exhaled. "Sometimes, Tobias, you must give your enemy the chance to walk away, even when you know they won't." In orbit, the Empire gave its answer. Cruiser Vexalt charged again. This time, it targeted the settlement. The ground shook. A streak of light carved toward the heart of New Earthlight. Tobias moved to shield her. She raised a hand. "No." Another ship, unmarked, dented, ugly, screeched into its path. It wasn't fast enough to dodge. Just fast enough to intercept. The blast consumed it. Vexalt's strike never reached the surface. The Empire watched its own warship pause. Not from damage, but from the realization. The people were willing to die for her. And they weren't even her people. They were hers only by choice. And choice freely given is the greatest weapon. Zurich Vaughn slammed a palm against the console. Retreat. But it was too late. The fleet didn't obey. Not all of them. 4 ships turned their guns away. 3 opened comms to New Earthlight, requesting terms of surrender. 2 shut down engines entirely. Mutiny bloomed in silence. Across the stars, the idea had already won. Renata returned to her porch. Children ran past her, not afraid anymore. Tobias stood beside her. "You planned this." "I planted it," she said softly. "Like seeds. Ideas grow, if you feed them." He looked at her. "What are you?" She sipped her tea. "I'm the story they never wanted told." She looked at the sky. Then she smiled. And it was not cruel, not proud, just inevitable. The Empire forgot what humans were. thought we were soft, fragile, temporary. She paused. They thought tea was weakness. Then the fleet cracked. Not from gunfire, from defection. Ships turned. Messages spread. Her name, Renata Holt, Baba Yaga, burned across the network, not in screams, but in reverence. The woman who faced empire with warmth. The woman who made kindness strategic. The woman who taught a galaxy to fear the smile that came before change. The final report filed from Sector X. 9A came 6 days later. Zurich Vaughn, red-eyed and silent, read the headline. Request for recognition of independent statehood. New Earthlight. Attached, 8.3 billion signatures. Cross-species. Voluntary. Legal. He crushed the tablet in his hands. Renata never left Sector X, 9A. She stayed on her porch, sipping tea, mending clothes, smiling when asked for advice. But every ship that passed her sky dimmed lights out of respect. Every new colony sent soil samples, seeds, stories. And every imperial soldier, no matter how far from home, knew the name Baba Yaga. Not a weapon, not a warrior, a warning. A reminder that the greatest revolutions start with a cup of tea and someone who listens long enough to scare you with their silence.